Welcome back. It's time for the news review. And Snow White, she's moved from Mary Poppins. Snow White is sitting to my left. Even her watch is white. And that ring, I just noticed, it has white, like, pearl-like on your right hand.
Benjamin Akapo.
Let me see. Oh, today you didn't give us the white shoes.
No, I didn't.
Were they stilettos you
No,
wore
they
the other
weren't.
day? They weren't. Oh, look at you. I'm making you blush. Oh. Anyway.
But it's good to be back. It's good to be here and get into the issues and have great conversations with you, Benjamin, and our guests.
Most definitely. Another week has started. But right before we get into our guest for this review, Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic helping us bring you this segment today, as they always do in the course of the week, and they're offering you prostate screening for free if you're a man. If you're a man from 35 onwards, you ought to start checking your prostate, especially because people of our ethnic grouping or racial grouping tend to be more prone to prostate disease, which is why you don't want to leave anything to chance if you're a man. Check yourself out. Prevention is better than cure. If you're a woman, fertility issues, nowadays it's common knowledge. You probably know someone or know someone who has had fibroid-related or fertility-related issues. Now, don't just assume that, oh, I'm a woman, so I'm fertile. Trust me, there could be so many things going on, which is why I am proffering for you Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic this morning for free prostate screening if you're a man, free fertility screening if you're a woman. All you have to do, reach out to them at any of their branches. Here in Accra, at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard, Kumasi, Kronum Abwe here behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's Takra DNRG Estate. There's Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanswa, and Asiaman Zama. You can reach them on 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. But just the start of the news review, and we're joined by, would you like to do us the honor?
Yes, today we're joined by Suleimana Brahima, and he's the Executive Director for Media Foundation for West Africa. Suleimana, welcome to the program. How are you feeling this morning?
Hello, Mr. Brahima. Good morning. If you can hear us, please unmute so we can hear.
Okay. Good morning. And I trust everything is fine. Thank you once again for having me.
Great.
Well, a new week has started. Before, you know how we do it on the show, would allow you to have a minute and a half to share your thoughts on something pertinent. I've seen you talking about this KPMG thing ad infinitum or ad nauseum. But I just wanted to, sweetie, sneak in this bit, lest I forget.
Right.
I hear there's a new trend of robbery going. Actually, it's technically not that new. It's been around for a long time, but basically you would have maybe a baby's cot or a basket close to you, wherever you live, and you'd be hearing the sounds of a baby crying, weeping. Don't be tempted to go out. It's a new armed robbery scheme. That's their MO. So you come out, they rush you, and disaster could take place. I'm not saying don't be human, but so per some of what I've seen, someone heard this but was cautious, stayed indoors, and then saw someone come out and then pick the thing and go away in a taxi, someone who was armed. Yeah. So let's all be careful and look out for these nefarious characters who are doing these things. But back to you, Suleimana Brahima. Quick thoughts, and then we can get into the newspapers with Sweetie Abochi starting.
Well, thank you very much, Ben. I think that there's a lot to reflect on. Of course, the president did release the KPMG report, the full report. We are being told that it as a result of a meeting with the leadership of Parliament, and it was a precondition, outlined by the minority side for them to even begin to have a listening ear in terms of whether or not KPMG contracts should be renegotiated. And then this whole thing about tax exemptions that the government has been pushing for some time now. But be it as it may, it's good that it's been released. We've all read the report, and obviously what is contained in the full report is far more scandalous than what the president had put out. And so, of course, it gives cause for worry. But what I would say is that between now and elections, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia and former President Mahama do have a responsibility, and I believe that they have what it takes to let Ghanaians have a feel of what their leadership would be if they were to win power in 2024, in the 2024 elections, and assume the reins of the presidency from January 7, 2025. And I say so because if you take former President Mahama, he's been outlining a number of policies. And for me, critical of all of that is the issue of corruption, because we need money to pursue everything that one would want to do. And so the fight against corruption for me is central to every policy decision that anyone would make. Former President Mahama is the leader of the party. He has 137 members of parliament, which is about half of our parliament. Between now and the end of the year, I think that he has what it takes to be able to whip them to basically align themselves with the policy decisions that he's been espousing. In other words, anything that is contrary to whatever he is, propagating now as things that he would do if he wins power, he should be able to get the parliamentarians to act accordingly. So, for example, tax exemptions. I don't think that the NDC caucus in Parliament should cede or yield to any pressure for tax exemptions to be granted when the poor are being taxed left, right, and center. Issues about corruption, SML renegotiation. I don't think that the minority in Parliament, if indeed they would want to convince us that whatever the leader is talking about in terms of the fight against corruption is real, then they have a responsibility to ensure that SML renegotiation is not done, and all the other things. I believe Vice President Bawumia, as leader of the NPP, also has the same responsibility to give us a taste of what it is, what would it be if he were to be elected president. Right. Between now and December, he should be able to whip his parliamentarians to act in ways that would demonstrate that, well, if Bawumia is in power, these are the kinds of things that we'll be seeing.
Right. Well, thank you for those initial thoughts, Sweetie.
Yes, let's get into the newspapers, starting with the Daily Guide. I'll do some major stories in there, and then we come to you for your reactions. On the front page of the Daily Guide newspaper, Ghanaian lady missing in Nigeria, secret recordings, plea letters exposed. That is the Godfrey Dame Yeboah's case. And Finance Ministry holds engagement with stakeholders. Let's get into the papers now, starting with this ambulance case. Secret recordings, plea letters exposed. And it reads, details have emerged about the circumstances that led to businessman Richard Jakpa surreptitiously recording the Attorney General and Minister for Justice Godfrey Dame in the house of a justice of the Supreme Court in the midst of the unsubstantiated allegations by Jakpa that the Attorney General has impressed on him to implicate Minority Leader Dr. Kasalato Forson. Daily Guide has gathered evidence pointing to how the businessman secretly recorded a conversation between him, the AG, and the Supreme Court judge. The Minority National Democratic Congress is using the said recording as a weapon to pressure the Attorney General into discontinuing the trial of their leader in Parliament. I'm sure we all are abreast with this issue. And what's interesting is, I'm genuinely interested in seeing how this unfolds. Since 2012, there's been so many people who've called for the discontinuation of this case, but it looks like the Attorney General persists. And if Mr. Jakpa is, is saying what he's saying is not true, he stands, he could be tried for perjury. He knows this. So I'm really curious to see how all of this unfolds. But let me get into the rest of the story.
Well, it doesn't go back as far back as 2012. I mean, it starts from the end of the last administration into this one. My little top-up before this, letters of credit and all of that, I mean, if you know how they operate, and these are things that I will delve into later on the show. But the point also is, with these instances, if we feel people have done wrong, why do we always wait till it's an electoral year and then we go hard on this? I have asked, for example, Mahama, and they would say the Airbus and all of that. I ask, are there no years? It's only in election years that you see these things come up. I've always said, if someone is culpable, and that Airbus issue went as far as the UK, and nothing came of it, and it came back. I'm saying that if someone is culpable, I don't care whose ox is God. Deal with the person, no matter the time. But this bit about, and it sounds propagandist, always waiting till an election year to do something. If someone is culpable, let them go into the cooler.
Well.
It's their own wrongdoing. And if they are not, let's stop being hypocritical and move on. Simple.
Anyway, now it looks like they've opened a can of worms. Let's see what comes out, what swims out.
Well,
so
Pandora's box.
Pandora's box. On page 6 of the Daily Guide, Ghanaian lady missing in Nigeria. Breaking the 8 is possible, according to Baumi. I want to do the story because it sounds interesting. A Ghanaian lady, Abigail Afiba Tando, has been declared missing in Nigeria while on a visit with a female friend. The young woman's mysterious disappearance has compelled the Nigerian police force to launch a search for her. According to reports, Abigail Afiba Tando went to Nigeria with a friend, Celine Indiodim, who is from Nigeria. There's strong suspicion that Afiba has been abducted in the commercial city of Aba, Abia State, Nigeria. Abigail Tando, whose passport number is G39078849, traveled to Celine Indiodim in Nigeria to attend a friend's wedding. Now, the wedding ceremony was reportedly put off, and the Ghanaian lady decided to engage in other businesses. But so far, one suspect has been arrested, Andrew Amechi Ochipo, who is a 52-year-old British Nigerian, and has been apprehended and is helping the police in an investigation. Be careful out there when you're traveling. Deputy Minister inspects drainage systems. Financial sector reforms laudable. One dead, KK Fosu, blessed suffer broken legs in car crash. We saw Lil Wayne over the weekend involved in some accidents over there. We hope he's okay. And First National Bank trains traders on management skills. Stephen Intim appointed NPA board chairman. These are the stories in the Daily Guide newspaper. Let me come to you. Okay, so let me add this one. Hajj airlift starts tomorrow. All is set for the maiden airlift of over 400 Ghanaian pilgrims from the northern sector in Tamale International Airport tomorrow. The chairman of the Ghana Hajj Board, Alhaji Ben Abdallah Banda, made the disclosure last Saturday during a press conference at the Hajj village in Accra. Quote, by the grace of Allah, our painstaking efforts of the past months will on Tuesday, May 28, 2024, be climaxed with the takeoff of the first flight of Ghanaian Muslims from Tamale to Medina, Saudi Arabia, to perform the annual pilgrimage. That is the Hajj. Those are some stories in the Daily Guide newspaper. Now let me come to you, Suleiman Abrahima. What are your thoughts?
Well, for our brothers and sisters who would be embarking on Hajj this year, we wish them well. May their prayers be accepted and be rewarded for all their efforts.
Right.
I think the major story for me is the development around the the controversy around the AG and whether or not there have been some recordings as alleged by the second or third accused person, the businessman, Mr. Japa. I think if it turns out that it is true, that would be a very, very significant indictment on the AG. And I think it would have a very significant toll on his credibility. Of course, I've also read the statement that was issued and signed by the Deputy AG, discounting the claims that were made, and now telling us that actually it was the minority leader who has been engaging with the AG for plea bargain and for the discontinuance of the case and so on. My question has been, why are we now being told what the minority leader is alleged to be engaged in terms of plea bargain or engaging with the AG for the matter to be discontinued? And for me, that is not even surprising, because if indeed the minority leader has been engaging, so what? You know, whether he feels that he's being prosecuted rightly, he feels that he doesn't have a case, or he feels that he has a case, in terms of engaging to see if the matter could be settled, I don't think that that's a big deal. But if it turns out that indeed there's evidence that the Attorney General has been engaging with this other accused person to try and get him to implicate the minority leader, then that would be a very, very serious matter. And I believe that if indeed, as the NDC says, they would bring matters up, if it turns out that they bring evidence to prove what Mr. Japa had said, I believe that the AG would have to honorably resign, because from that time on, how would we believe
Mr. Brima, I'm sorry. I mean, is this a realistic opinion you're holding that the AG will resign over this? Just to prompt you, some have even said that, I mean, this doesn't impact the case in question. As for conduct, and yes, the Attorney General as head of the bar would have to be much more abreast of certain principles that guide the legal profession and all of that. But they say it would be a personal matter, not impact the real work in court. And expecting him to resign, I don't know about that. I don't know.
Just saying. I think that as our lawyer, as the principal lawyer of the government, as the principal lawyer of the country, representing us on matters, in the international arena and all of that, I think that credibility and trust and honesty and sincerity is so critical. As you said, people have said in the past that, oh, this matter should be discontinued, it looks like it's a witch hunt, is it a scheme to silence the minority leader and all of that. And if all of a sudden it turns out that actually the principal lawyer of the state has been engaging with an accused person in the case to basically get him to implicate the principal accused person, that is a matter of significant, we cannot just brush that aside. And we cannot say that that's just a personal thing. That, so how do I believe that on all other matters that are being prosecuted by the AG, similar things are not happening? And I think that in a jurisdiction where issues of ethics, issues of moral values, issues of integrity are held up so high, this would certainly be a matter that when it's revealed and the evidence indeed points to that, a minister would have to step down. But I don't think it would be right for us to say that, oh, this is personal. Yes, here's the evidence. Oh, indeed, the Attorney General was calling this person to implicate Atufosen, but let's take it as a personal matter. No, that would be trivializing the whole thing. I think that if indeed it is proven that the Attorney General was engaged in the conduct that he is alleged to have been engaged in, this would be grounds for him to step down. Because beyond that, I really personally would wonder if I would have any trust for the AG in terms of the steps that he takes to ensure justice in this country.
Right. Okay, let's get into the New Finder newspaper now. On the front page, 2.32 billion inflows expected. Signing of OCC to unlock more funds to restart stalled projects. That is according to Dr. Amin Adam, the finance minister. AI takes center stage at CEO Summit today. Government initiates monthly dialogues to address concerns of businesses. And again, we have the story of the ambulance case. Was Attorney General entrapped? Let's get into the newspaper now and look at the story. Page 2 says 2.32 billion inflows expected. Government is expecting $2.32 billion in inflows from its development partners to stabilize the city. The disbursement expected before the end of the year will add to the significant foreign exchange reserves already built up by the Bank of Ghana. The country's foreign reserves stood at $6.2 billion as of April 5th, 2024. Now, this expectation has received a big boost as the government officially received the draft Memorandum of Understanding from the Official Creditor Committee, which is expected to unlock funds so that major infrastructure projects halted across the country can resume. These are excerpts from the speech from the finance minister on Friday when he addressed the nation on the state of the economy. Driver of Anglo Traditional Council in police grip for attempted smuggling of cocoa beans to Togo. It appears every week now there's a story of an arrest of someone attempting to smuggle cocoa outside the country. NHIA engages service providers on preventive promotive health initiatives. Rate hike would show commitments to economic stability, according to an economist. GSA stresses importance of management systems certification for businesses. And World Bank reaffirms support for Ghana's public financial management reforms. Again, there's the ambulance case here. Probe the allegations of perversion in this case. AI takes center stage at CEO Summit today. Let me do that story quickly. The 8th edition of the Ghana CEO Summit opens this morning with the aim of leaving a significant impact on business leadership and economic development in West Africa. Held under the theme Reigniting Business and Economic Growth, Charting a Path Forward. The event will address critical challenges and opportunities within Ghana's evolving business landscape. Okay, so we're looking forward to that. Public debt, this is the final story I'll do and then I'll come to you. Public debt rises to 658.6 billion Ghana cedis in February. Ghana's public debt has reached 658.6 billion Ghana cedis, according to the latest economic and financial data published by the Bank of Ghana. Now, according to the data, the country's debt stood at 611.2 billion Ghana cedis at the end of 2023, which rose to 626 billion Ghana cedis in January 2024 and further increased to 658.6 billion Ghana cedis by February 2024. Now, the sharp increase elevates the nation's debt to GDP ratio to 62.7%, up from 611.2 billion at the close of 2023. Now, the escalation in the public debt stock was driven primarily by the depreciation of the cedi, we know that, and a significant rise in government borrowing on the domestic market. Those are just some quick headlines and stories from the New Finder for your reaction.
First of all, I want to comment on the NHIA, is NHIS?
Yeah, NHIA, Engaging Service Providers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, over the course of the whole of last week, I was actually in a series of meetings that also had reps from the authority present, and some conversations pointed to the fact that there have been some positive developments at the authority. And I would want to say, well, if that trend continues, that would really be a good development for the country. And I therefore would want to commend the leadership of the authority for the work that they are doing. And I believe that all I was hearing are all true. And if it is, as I said, because the NHIA is a very important and significant institution, so if things are going on positively, that is really something that we should all be happy about. Of course, I've also read about the Minister of Finance, who I believe has assumed this role at a very, very difficult time of our country. And that also then imposes some responsibility on him to acquit himself diligently. And I do know Honorable Amin well. I suppose he means well for our country, except that, as I said, it's a difficult time. Talk about the amount of inflows that are expected is also about talking about the amount of debts that we are accumulating. And that is why, for me, it's gratifying that the same newspaper is talking about how much is expected to flow in and how much our debt has increased. I believe as at the time this government was taking over, our debt was around 130 or 140 billion Ghana cedis. Now we're talking about over 600 billion Ghana cedis. What for me is critical is about the future of this country. And we are running the country as though there is no future. Across the world, countries that really are doing well, it's all because the previous generations tried to do things that would make life better for the current generation. And the current generation is doing same to ensure that future generations will even have a better life.
Right.
But in our country, I think what we are observing is that the current generation would want to have life better, and disregard whatever the consequences would be for future generation. Unfortunately, it's from leadership to the citizenry and the fundamental moral fabric that is essential for nation building is no more there, and it's getting worse by the day.
Right.
So the fear, if things continue this way, certainly our country is doomed. And we all have a role to play. Let's do what we can.
Let's do what we can. On that note, I'm handing over to Benjamin Akaku. What papers do you have?
Well, I have the Daily Graphic newspaper, and I also do have the Ghanaian Publisher newspaper. So let me start with the Daily Graphic. I have some messages here that I would read, but I'm seeking some consent before I mention names. Anyway, so We will stabilize CD, Finance Minister assures Nation. And he's been talking about that with that, presser interaction that he had. Church of Pentecost calls for drastic measures to curb galamsey. GCB celebrates Asante Hene. And Graphic National Development Dialogue Series. Experts speak on quality health tomorrow. On the back page, Mukwala's brace sinks hearts. What is happening to Krobia Kumasi Asante Kotoko and the never say die people? It appears the bones are rotting. I know some people will not like me, but both Kotoko and Hearts, Charlie. There's also Adriana topple Nations with 1-0 win. Let me see where Kotoko and Hearts are today. Hearts Evoke in 15th spot. Where's Kotoko? Kotoko in 9th spot. Okay, they've gone up by a little, but a far cry from the dominance that we used to see. But interesting times, across the board. After all, we've seen Bayer Leverkusen do the unthinkable in the German Bundesliga, among others. But let me get into the main stories. The government has announced that it is intensifying the gold for oil and gold for reserves programs and fast-tracking fiscal consolidation processes within the economy among a raft of measures intended to stabilize the Ghana cedi. Other interventions intended to shore up the local currency, which has depreciated by 14% against the US dollar this year alone, include the government's expected receipt of a combined $2.3 billion from its development partners. Addressing the media in Accra last Friday at the monthly economic update series, the Minister of Finance, Dr. Mohamed Amin Adam, said, but for the recent pressures, the local currency had been largely stable, with the depreciation of the cedi against the US dollar halving from 54.2% at the end of November 2022 to 27.8% at the end of December 2023. But there are some interesting things to take stock of. Ghana's public debt has hit 658.6 billion Ghana cedis. And as of today, last time I checked, the dollar was trading at practically 16 cedis to the dollar. The euro, I had someone transact over the weekend telling me about it, hovering around the same figure. The pound is north of 17 cedis. I don't know. But we need these figures to go down because right now it is madness out there. It's a bedlam. If you're transacting on anything in any of these currencies, and if you're bringing in anything from other parts of the world, these are the currencies you're going to transact in. It is murder. Suleiman Abrahima, any quick thoughts on this?
Well, for me, to start with, I would say it's so sad how far President Akufo-Addo and his cousin Ofori-Atta have brought us in terms of our economy, our national public debts, the value of our national currency, the cedi. I believe that there was a particular point where people had not lost confidence in the management of our economy and were demanding that Mr. Ofori-Atta be moved. President Akufo-Addo still looked on, and I don't know what the reasons were until things got to where we are now, where it's almost like things have suddenly fallen apart. I mean, this is not about NPP or NDC. This is about our nation. This is about our country. And as I keep saying, whatever we as individuals, as citizens can do to support the governance and the management of the country, I think we should. It's good to have the current finance minister still do positive, communication, still give us hope about the fact that the cedi would eventually recover, even though we all know that in election years, things really don't work out well in terms of our economy and the expenditure and all of that. So it's quite sad, but one doesn't really know what to say, because what it means is that the spending power of all Ghanaians are just basically being taken away. Because if your salary was 5,000, it may remain 5,000, but what your 5,000 could do in January or February, perhaps now it could just do about 2/3 of that. And going forward, if by August, September, the depreciation continues, what happens to your 5,000? So it's a major economic problem for everyone. It's not just about the country and its debt. It's about the spending power. It's about the cost of living that is getting worse by the day. And everything that can be done to salvage the situation must be done. As I keep emphasizing, the government is still in power. Former Vice President Baumia is an economist. We all believed that he was an economist, and a good one at that. This is the time that we need his brains. This is the time we need all the ideas that he has. It mustn't be when he wins. We need to see evidence of what is possible when the country and the economy is in crisis, what he can do. And I believe he has the opportunity to prove to us that this will not continue to derail, but will get better. Other than that, as I said, it's so sad to see where President Akufo-Addo and Oforiatta have brought us, as a country.
On page 13, Church of Pentecost calls for drastic measures to curb galamsey. The galamsey story is one that we have told time and again. I am not going into the story because I think it is a redundant issue, but it is a story that practically every day we talk about. And I don't know how we'll get out of that pit. I'm playing on words here. Pit and galamsey, because we are in a pit. And where we find, I get shocked sometimes. There's shock value, because back in the day you could actually go on excursions and see some of these water bodies and this and that. Today, all you would see is, I don't know, muddied water.
Milo.
I don't know. There's no marine life in there. But there's also resolving NDC-EC differences. A number of people actually speak. I'll just pick a few of them. It's a big issue in the Daily Graphic. So, for example, Reverend Father Michael Kweku, Director of Governance, National Catholic Secretariat, says, to say that the main opposition political party, NDC's impasse with the EC, is of concern to the well-meaning Ghanaian is to state the situation lightly, as it shouldn't require a disquisition to grasp the seriousness of this problem for the very survival of our democratic dispensation. That's just a little piece. I'll pick a piece. Then our very own Dr. John Osai Kwapong of the Democracy Project says, there is no denying that the NDC does not trust the EC. It is, however, fair to note that our two main political parties, the MPP and the NDC, when in opposition, tend to have trust issues with the EC. For some inexplicable reason, the parties have come to believe that their political fortunes at the polls are determined by the actions and inactions of the EC. Recently, Dr. Sribo Kweku of the EC made a point clear that, there's no way the EC can rig for you if you're thinking, or was it Dr. Bosman Asari, if you're thinking that an EC can sway an election for you, you are joking. Then I'll end with Dr. Kojo Asante, Director of Policy Engagement at the CDD. He says the return of the NDC to IPAC after being absent since 2021 signaled a positive willingness by the NDC and the EC to engage and mend their relationship. This has helped resolve some contentious issues. It goes on and on. I think having done 3 men, it would be only fair that I add the only female. Caroline Cobb is a student, and she says, the end goal for an election of any developing economy is to satisfy the threefold elements of free, fair, transparent elections through all matters relating to the conduct of public elections. And she also goes on and on. She's basically saying, let those principles stand. And since I've just done that story, on the international front, EFF's final rally draws thousands. Pictured there, Julius Malema, leader of the EFF. Kenyan police advance team leaves Haiti, and Sunak, I'm talking about British PM, Rishi Sunak promises mandatory national service for 18-year-olds. Actually shared what he shared on LinkedIn. Some interesting thoughts in there about how to get the youth involved and, prepare them for tomorrow, or in fact, today, because the future is today. Quick thoughts?
Well, Ben, the starting point, galamsey, of course, is a development that has been ongoing. It's quite easy to say, well, it's a lost battle, so let's forget about it. But we cannot, because it's about environment, it's about our future, and it's about our livelihoods. I think that the galamsey crisis has been as it has been now because of this whole thing about, look, if the leaders who are entrusted with power don't appear to care about the future of the country and everyone is grabbing for themselves, if I'm also a young person out there and I can go into galamsey and also make some money, why do I have to care about, the consequences on the environment? And so it comes down to this whole question about a country where people don't care about the future anymore. It's about what they need now. And from the topmost person to the person at the bottom, everyone is struggling to grab whatever they can grab. And if you talk to people today, that appears to be the narrative that, well, you are not the only one who will make Ghana what it should be. Everyone is trying to do what they can do to get their share of the pie. So why are you, always behaving as if you alone can make Ghana what it should be? I think there are still good people, significant number of good people in our country. We cannot just look up to leadership to do what is right. We as citizens must also do what is right. The Galamsey fight must continue, and we all must contribute to its success.
Right.
EC and NDC, the fact is that under Charlotte Osei, the MPP in opposition did everything to paint the EC as though it was some devilish organization. The NDC in opposition now has also been raising concerns about the activities of the EC. And I think the president has made it worse by appointing well-known partisan people onto the commission. And again, some activities of the EC also makes it difficult to sort of put up some defense. I mean, recently, I saw how they had to delete some certain things that they had put out because there were errors.
Right.
And the ongoing registration. I've spoken to parliamentary candidates from both sides of the divide, the NDC, MPP, and they are all blaming the EC about how they are going on with this limited voter registration exercise. Yesterday, for example, a friend who is a candidate in one of the constituencies was telling me there are communities in his constituency that is about 60 kilometers away from the district capital where the registration is supposed to take place. And this is a really poor area. How do you expect people to, finance themselves to travel 60 kilometers to go and register at a time when the voter ID is even no more as useful and as important a national document as before, because now it's about Ghana card. So people who feel, well, I cannot spend 20 cedis, 40 cedis, 50 cedis to go and register just so that I'm able to vote, they wouldn't do that.
Right.
And so you have parties now basing people, imposing a significant cost on candidates.
And that poses quite a number of problems. Suleiman, unfortunately, because of time, but I know exactly where you are headed. We have to cap it off here. I can't take any further reactions, but I have to do this with the permission of my producer. I have to do this. I got a message from the Ghanaian publisher, Toshi Lords Baumia's love for PWDs. We have outperformed NDC, that's according to Baumia. But spokesperson to the Office of the Attorney General and Minister for Justice, Isaac Wilberforce-Mensah, sent me something. He says it's also something he said yesterday. I listened partly, so I can't. But he says it's something he said on the probe yesterday. He's just drawing our attention to the fact that under Act 1079, which is the Plea Bargaining Act, there is nothing wrong with the AG meeting an accused. In fact, that is the purpose of the law for the parties to meet to reach agreement. The AG only met him personally when Richard Jakpa had sacked his lawyer, Thomas Orben. He adds he has sacked, that is, Jakpa has sacked lawyers about 2 or 3 times already. And then he also mentions the purpose of the act is for the parties to meet. So there is no scandal. The fact that the accused secretly recorded a meeting that he himself had called for at his own cousin's house is the scandal. I'm just reading that to be fair to both parties. I don't think the essence is thinking that this is not legal. It's about some other things that have been suggested. But thanks, Mr. Wilberforce, for sending in the message. I guess it's in response to something you said, Suleiman, but maybe we'll have time to delve into that at some other point. Suleiman Abrahima, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me. Have a great day.
He is Executive Director, Media Foundation for West Africa. We cap it off with Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, helping us bring you this segment every weekday. They are offering you prostate screening for free, fertility screening for free if you're a woman. Reach out to them at any of their branches here in Accra at Spintex, opposite the Shell signboard, Kumasi, Kronoma, Abuahi, and behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's Takrady Energy State, Tema Community 22, Tichiman Hansua, and the Siaman Sama. You can reach them on 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. As we go into sports, I'd like to celebrate Manchester United for winning the FA Cup. But I'm just thinking about it. Arsenal placed second. They didn't win a trophy. Barcelona also placed second. Almost so trophyless. Charlie. Anyway, sports is up next.
Are you keeping your...